Guys, in today's video I want to review the 4 most recently purchased palettes that I've shown on my channel, and they're going to be the Kat Von D Metal Matte palette, the Anastasia Beverly Hills Master palette by Mario, which is limited edition. The Kat Von D Metal Matte is as well. The Tarte Tartlet in Bloom palette, and the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette, which is supposed to be permanent. Okay, now I know I've gotten a lot of palettes recently, and to me this is crazy because it's like, how many palettes do you really need? But I truly love each of these for different reasons. So let's get into the first one, the most anticipated one for me, which is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette, which I love. Let me show you what the colors look like. I'm going to take the brush out, but it does come with a dual-sided brush. So this is what the palette looks like. It's supposed to be her first ever permanent palette, which I think is awesome because it is so pretty. And this retails for $42. You can purchase it on her website at Sephora and Ulta, I believe even at Macy's, maybe even a couple of other places, but I purchased mine from her website. Now, my overall opinion of this palette, I give it honestly 5 out of 5 stars. I love this palette so much, but there is one thing I have to say. Because of the tones in here, because they are more pinky, purpley, mauvey, they're very warm tones, I think that this palette is not necessarily an essential palette like some of the other ones I'm going to show you. But I think if you are a makeup collector like myself, or you just love tones like this, it is great. But I can't see someone who is just into general makeup for going to work or what have you. I can't really see them getting tons of use out of this palette, but you could create some really neutral looks with it. There are very nice neutral colors. I love it. You have your perfect transitional shades, you have some highlighter shades, you have a couple shimmery shades, and then you have your deeper berry and brown tones. One thing I will say about this palette though is I'm a shimmery girl. I know the look I have on now is very matte, but I love shimmer. So for me, this palette didn't have enough shimmer in it, but it's like you could also use the shimmery colors to top some of the other colors, but for me there's just not enough shimmer in this palette. I do know there are a couple of other brands who have palettes that look like this. There is the Huda Beauty Rose Gold palette, I believe is what it's called, and I think that has more shimmery tones in it. I do really love this palette though. A lot of times I don't like matte shadows. Well, one, because I just like my eyes to shine, but a lot of times matte colors can be super drying, and I find that these are very buttery and soft. They do tend to have a lot of kick up though, meaning if you swirl your brush in it, you will get a lot of powder. And even, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see, but there is like a little powdery residue on those matte colors that I have. But overall, I think this is a really gorgeous palette. I have done a couple of looks with it. I will link one that I did below, and I'm going to continue to do looks with this palette. I think these colors are just so perfect, but it is more of a fall and wintry toned palette. Definitely not something for the everyday neutral girl or guy, but I love it, and I'm so happy I finally got my hands on it. And also the little brush that comes with it, I know a lot of people do not really like this brush, but I think it's okay. I've used it for this palette anytime I've used the palette, and it works okay for me. I do have other better brushes, but I think if you're going to travel with this palette, this would be perfect. But speaking of traveling, I really cannot stand the packaging. Now, I am a really weird person. I have OCD. I've diagnosed myself with OCD, but I'm very particular about how things feel, and this is like a faux velvet. It's gonna get super dirty. I'm a neat freak, so that's not gonna work. But also, because this is just a magnetic closure and it does have a brush in it, I think this is not the best for traveling. But as far as the goods inside, this gets 5 out of 5 stars for me. So if you are looking for this palette, I would say pick it up. My next palette is the Tarte Tartlet in Bloom, and this is what this looks like. This palette is nothing new. This palette retails for $45, and you can purchase it from Ulta, Sephora, Tarte.com, maybe even Macy's and places like that. I believe this came out at least a year ago, and these are what the colors look like. Let's see. So the colors are very neutral tone. There are 2 fine mattes and 3 shimmery tones. I love this palette. Now, I know looking at it on first glance, you're like, what is so special about this palette? There's really nothing special about it other than the fact that it has very, very nice neutral tones. This is great for the everyday guy or girl if you just want something basic for work. Not too shimmery or anything like that, not too over the top. This is perfect, but because it also has those 3 shimmery shades in there, I think you could use this for a multitude of looks. You could use it going out, you could use it for the office, you could use it for anything. It is a very basic palette. It's nothing super special and fancy, but the quality of the shadows are really nice. And this is actually my first Tarte palette, but this is just really one of my favorite palettes. I just love that you could really travel with this. I also like that it kind of snaps closed. If I was going on a trip, I would probably take this palette. It's very sturdy, but also it just has every color you need. If you want to do a really light matte look for work, if you want to do a going out look, you have shimmery and dark tones. The quality of these shadows are so nice. There's not as much kick up, really, if at all. Definitely not like the Anastasia colors, but they're same smooth, buttery shadows. The shimmery colors are really nice and intense as well. I love this palette, so I say this is something that everybody should have in their arsenal. Not necessarily the Tartelette in Bloom, but just a basic palette that's not too large, but something that you can pick a couple of different looks from. And for me, this is just everything. And how cute is the packaging? Like, I'd rather have this than the Naked Basics palette, which I think are very interesting choices of palette. Okay, next is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Master Palette by Mario, which is a limited edition palette. This palette retails for $45, so it is a little more expensive than the other Anastasia Beverly Hills products or palettes, but because it is in conjunction with a celebrity popular makeup artist, I can understand why they made it so expensive. These are what the shades look like. Now, before I get into the shades, I do have to be honest and say that when this palette first came out, I was not interested in it in the least bit. And the reason being, I'm gonna be honest, I don't tend to gravitate towards anything connected to the Kardashians. I have my own reasons. I'm not really gonna get into them, but the video that sold me on this was Stephanie Nicole's video, which I will link down below. I just love her channel. She's so real, and I love that she put so much work and education behind her videos. It's not gonna be just a, oh, I love it, or oh, I shouldn't get it, but she's going to actually do her research, and I really appreciate that, being the nerd that I am. But when she showed the swatches and talked about the product and even his background of how he went from working holiday at Sephora to being a celebrity makeup artist, I think that is awesome, and it's definitely something commendable. I was like, you know what, I can put my feelings aside and get this palette. So I purchased this palette from Ulta in store, I think on the first day that it came out. This palette is gorgeous. This is another one of those palettes that I think that everybody needs. Reason being, you have a nice combination of mattes and shimmery shades. You also have lighter tone shades and darker tones. I've done a look on my channel with this purple here, but you also just have really neutral colors, and I like the range of colors in here. Certain palettes, like one I'm gonna get to in a second, I can't make a whole look out of just the palette alone, but with this one, I have everything I need. I use the Isabelle as a transitional color. I have highlight colors if I want them, and I have a range of lid and crease colors. This palette is everything. Once again, the matte colors do tend to have a little kick up when you're swirling your brush in it, but I don't mind because they're just so pigmented and amazing. The shimmery colors are very high quality. They stand out, and this palette is quickly becoming my favorite. I'm gonna make a bold statement here, but I think this is my favorite palette of 2016. The quality, the tones, the usability, just everything about it I love. It is a pretty palette, but I can honestly see myself using every color in this palette. It's not too large, it's not overwhelming. I just think, just looking at it, you can tell colors that you would automatically use together, and I love it so much. Seriously, if you can get your hands on this palette, I know it is limited edition, I would say go for it. I do not think you will be disappointed. This is my favorite. It also did come with another brush. Okay, my last palette. This is my most recent purchase, and this is the Kat Von D, the metal. matte. This is an ambergris. I think that's so cool, but whatever, that's the nerd in me. Let's get to the actual shades. These are all the colors. I'm actually using the palette today on my eyes. I did this smoky green look, definitely outside of my comfort zone, but I figured I have on a green shirt, let's go for it. It's $60. It's limited edition for the holiday season. You can purchase this, I believe, only from Sephora, maybe on Kat Von D's website, but I did get mine from the Sephora VIB Rouge sale. I love this palette because number one, it's huge, okay? It is massive. Like, this is the size of my head and this is the palette. Like, this is the palette compared to the Master palette. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I really love the tones in here. What I like about this palette, unlike the Urban Decay Full Spectrum palette, which also came out this holiday season, this has bright colors, but they're still neutral tone to me. Like this purple, it's not too bright. You have a couple of lighter pastel colors, but they're not strikingly bold and neon. You have your greens and your blues, your shimmers up here, but it's not like a, oh my goodness, I'm never gonna see myself using this palette. It also has neutral tones in it. So I would say these right here, these are all the ones that I would consider to be neutral, and then these would be your darker going out colors, and then of course you have your whites. But another great thing about this palette is that it has mattes and metals. Now, I've actually never ever tried any of the Kat Von D eyeshadows. This was my first time, and I can say that I am highly, highly impressed. I did a look, I did a look with this palette yesterday, and I used the color Flash. I will say that I had a hard time getting that product on my brush. I don't know if it was just this palette. Maybe I have to just rub my finger over the color to try to get more of the pigmentation. I'm not sure. But one thing I do have to say about that Flash color is that because I have hooded eyes, like when my eyes are open, a lot of my shadow is hidden, it did transfer onto this part of my lid up here that's not my actual lid, my mobile lid. So I have to figure out how to make that work. I think I can alleviate that problem by using a glitter glue, like a Too Faced glitter glue. But like, just look at these shimmery colors. Like, they're just, that is everything. The colors are just so gorgeous, and the mattes are as well. Today I have this moss all over my lid, and then on my crease I have oak, stone, and jet in my outer V and in my crease. And I just love this look. It's so different from me, but that's what I love about this palette. I really would say if you are into more colorful looks, but you're not like too out there, you'll love this palette. I have to say that the quality of these matte eyeshadows are also nice. I don't experience the kick up that I do with the Anastasia palettes, the two that I have. I was waving to my brother. Then I also have Flash on my lower, whatever you call that. But this palette is awesome. I would give this 4 out of 5 stars, and if you can get your hands on it, I definitely would recommend it. I think this would make an awesome Christmas gift, and for the size and quantities of the eyeshadows, I think it really is worth the $60. Okay guys, so that was my massive 4 palette review. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.